So a little bit about myself. I was actually born in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I'm a Cajun at heart. Grew up in the South. Eventually went to Corpus Christi, and my family got moved there. Entered the seminary there in 1966, which is older than all of y'all here. And then continued in the seminary through high school, and then got my bachelor's degree through the University of St. Thomas, Houston. And then my master's degrees are through the University of St. Thomas, Houston, ordained in 1977. And so this November is my 45th anniversary as a priest. My first assignment, though, was in Mexico, in both our mission, which is both the Jackson and the Biloxi Diocese mission in Saltillo, and also in the mission of Corpus Christi in Arteaga. And so that's really where the missionary spirit hit me in a big way, to celebrate Mass for the folks and all the sacraments, and then to also experience the faith of the people. I mean, it was just simple faith, but boy, wow, in the midst of really deep poverty, but they were just very much faith-filled. We served in Saltillo. We served a main church called Our Lady Perpetual Help, so it's Perpetuo Socorro. And then we also served some colonias around the city, and then we served over 50 missions out in the high desert. And then in Arteaga there was a main church, and then kind of almost like your hand is like this. This is how the missions were, and these are the mountains, and then in between your fingers are the valleys, and the ejidos, we call them, ranchos, were all either in the valley or up in the mountains, one of the two. Really a gift to be with the people. And as bishop now, I go back each year with Bishop Kopaz from Jackson, and we spend time in the mission. And this year we had Juliana, who's back over here. She's our communications person for the diocese. Hi, Juliana.
Hello.
So she was there recording a good deal of it, and all the homilies. So on our diocesan website, for those of you that have Spanish, those homilies that I gave on the mission are there. Also have all the English homilies that I give here in the States there too. So the Diocese of Biloxi. So just to give you a little history, in 1961, Pope St. John the 23rd asked the churches around the world, especially dioceses, to adopt missions and to have a mission spirit. And so that percolated the church, and of course we had the Second Vatican Council happen in 63 through 66, 67, and Pope Paul VI succeeded John the 23rd, and he continued the mission direction. So the Diocese of Natchez-Jackson, which was the only diocese in Mississippi at the time, said, yes, we'll send a priest to Mexico. So Father Paddy Quinn was the one that went down to learn Spanish. So he went down actually in 1970. How many have heard the name Father Paddy Quinn out of y'all? How many? There we go. Good man back there. Yay team. And Juliana's heard it. And of course my hand went up because I worked with him. And he began to discuss with Bishop Lobos, who was the bishop then, okay, where could the mission be and what should we do? So Bishop Lobos called him to actually serve the mission at Our Lady Perpetual Help, which was at that time kind of on the outskirts of Saltillo. And Saltillo at that time probably had maybe 250, 300,000 people in it. Okay, give you an idea of size. Now, it's like 1.4 million people. It's amazing, the difference that's happened in the last 50 years. So in 1973, the mission actually was formed, and so we have been serving that mission for the last 50 years. I was there in 1977, 78, and worked with Father Patty at the time, and also worked in the Arteaga mission, both places. So we were kind of like circuit riders is the best way to describe it. We would visit 2 villages a day, because remember there's 50 and 50, and there was 2 priests in each village, each of our parishes. So we'd be each do 2 a day, and when you were there in the village, you would do everything. So we would visit the sick, anoint. We would do first communions, confirmations, weddings. We do everything all at once when we're there, because we're only there once a month. And so the people, to gather the people, we would honk the horn of the truck, or if we were on horseback, which we did a bit, we would simply have a bell that would ring, and people would gather to celebrate Mass and to celebrate all the sacraments of the church. So let's give a glimpse of some of the people first. And these are modern. This was the trip we just got back from here in September. So this is Monsignor Flannery, and he has written a book on the mission in Saltillo. And he's here in confessions with one of the local leaders in one of the villages. Let's look at the next one just out of sight. So this is one of our villages that we were at and visited and celebrated Mass for them. It's actually on the highway on the way to Zacatecas, and it's kind of way out in the desert. It takes about 2 hours to get there. But these are the folks that gathered for the Mass. Now, there's actually more people that belong to that rancho, but they are actually working in Saltillo. So that's actually what's happened, why Saltillo has grown so much, is they have what they call fábricas that have opened. That's it, factories. So GM, Ford, all of them have factories now in Saltillo. And so the workforce is coming from the people in the desert and also people that are living now in Saltillo, which is really sweet. And then this is me blessing some of the young people, and they get the giggles when you hit them with holy water, I can tell you. Get the giggles. Yeah. So this is actually St. Peter's Church, and it's really the statues that we brought in are those 2 statues next to the cross, and they're brand new for that particular rancho. And that rancho, actually, the year before, we had confirmations there. And what we did was we had a pilgrimage of cars and trucks and everything else that we began to pick up people from the main highway all the way in each of the little towns, each of the little ranchos, all the way there. So we had a tremendous line of people and a tremendous number of people that came for the confirmation that we had there. So it really is, it was just very touching, very touching. And of course, as we went through every village, we were honking the horns, and then they were honking horns as they got in line with us. So I mean, it was really, really very special. And again, one of our other, I think that's the Church of St. Jude. It's one of our ranchos there. The folks are very simple. They're really farmers and ranchers, and then some of the families, of course, work in the different factories. The Mexican government actually sends out buses to pick the people up from the ranchos to go work in the fabricas, which is really a shift. So we actually passed some like 50 buses going out of the city to go pick up people. It was amazing. That didn't happen when I was there back in 77, 78 at all, which was really good. And you can see the famous burro, which is cute. Let me back up into the mission spirit before we go a whole lot further. And you can see one of the adobe huts has just caved in completely in the background. And that does happen, within the mission, because they're made out of adobe, and when they do get rain, the adobe huts can be at risk. They really can. So it can be very amazing. So let me get back into the mission spirit. One of the things that hit me when I was studying Spanish there, and also celebrating Mass and the sacraments and the like, was that Jesus in Matthew 28 really told us to make disciples. That's actually what the first thing he said. Then he said, baptize all nations, and then teach them all that I've commanded you, and especially know that I'm with you to the end of the age. And so in a lot of ways, Pope St. John the 23rd was actually calling us to live that. And he was following up also with Pope St. Pius the 12th too. Each of them really called the church to be a mission church, to really live a mission spirit. And as a diocese of Biloxi now, so in 1977, the Diocese of Biloxi was split off of the Diocese of Natchez-Jackson, and Jackson became the diocese in the north of Mississippi, central and north, and then we became the Diocese of the south. And as you know, we are in the Baptist belt in a big way, so we are a minority, big time. But we have more Catholics in the south and less area than the north of Mississippi. So the north of Mississippi has 4 times the area and less Catholics than we have in the south. The call, though, for us as a church is to be a mission-driven church. And in some ways, that's the call for each of you, is to be missionaries of the church. And our focus missionaries are examples of that, what we're called to as a church. Okay, let's see another one. So this is another one of our mission churches. It looks like Garambullo. I think it is. And the vestments we're wearing, by the way, are the vestments of the 25th anniversary of the parish that we're serving in Saltillo itself, called San Miguel, and it's the Archangel, St. Michael. We've been there for 25 years as a parish, but we were actually there before that when it was just simply a mission church. And I did a wedding at St. Michael's when I was a priest there. We had one particular day, Father Patty Quinn scheduled 15 weddings in 15 different locations, plus all the Saturday masses we had and the Sunday masses. So each of us did at least 10 masses each in that 24-hour period. One of the humorous things that happened for me is the last wedding I had, which was my 5th one, I had actually forgotten the ritual at the previous church. But by the time I got to the 5th one, I had it memorized. I had it covered. I had it memorized. So San Miguel was one of the churches that I had one of the weddings at, and it was in the chapel. They had a small chapel. Now they have a very large church, which you're going to see in a bit here. This is one of the missions we serve. It takes about 2 hours to get to there, and it's really a desert road that you can get your back just readjusted many times all the way there and all the way back. I was telling the folks I was with this time, I says, you know, I'm not as young as I used to be. This is a heck of a trip to get here. And that is not the farthest one out. The farthest one out is called El Tapón. Tapón meaning kind of the end, and truly out in the desert. It is the end. It's another 2 hours out there, and it's a riverbed that you drive on to get there. So this trip we couldn't get there because it had actually rained, and there was no way to get through the riverbed. It was all mud, and so in any event, each of these missions actually came to the big feast day that we had, and we'll crank it up again. Let's see where we're at. That's Bishop Copas. You see him and me, and this is trying to remember the name of the church. This is actually would be the big San Miguel church. The chapel is on the other side of it, and it's very small. Each night we would have Mass for the people in San Miguel after we were out in the missions. So this would be like the third or fourth or fifth Mass of the day, to give you an idea of how much stuff was going on. And so they had the super pixies come the first night, the 2-year-olds, then they had 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and then I think this is a little older group. Looks like it. And so we would bless each of the young people that came. Keep going. This is one of the colonias. Yeah. So I was telling you about the colonias. So the Saltillo has grown so much that some of the areas that we had as little mission churches are now really parishes. I mean, they're and the average age in these churches is like 35 and below. Young church, very young church. It's amazing, really is. Keep going. So this is the hall that they're building, and just to let you know, it is still a bit dangerous there. So the hall, they had a beginnings of a kitchen, and there were some young people that got in there and stole all of it. And then they had a bell in the bell tower, and they stole that. So we're actually in the process of redoing it and trying to get it to a point where there's more security available. So Father Paddy Quinn, you can see his photo at the very top, but all of that's about Father Paddy Quinn. Father Paddy Quinn served that particular parish and area with distinction. So they would call him the Bishop of Saltillo, even though the bishop was Bishop Lobos, but the Bishop Lobos was actually the whole state of Coahuila. So if you're looking at the United States, South Texas, Laredo especially, everything from there south until you get to the next state of Mexico is the state of Coahuila. And so he was so well known and renowned that when his funeral happened, they had thousands and thousands and thousands of people come to his funeral. And they actually got permission for him to be buried in Our Lady Perpetual Help Church, which isn't done in Mexico, I can tell you, at all. And so this is kind of the shrine that they've created, and his body is right below Monsignor Flannery, right below there. And there'll come a day when he'll be up for sainthood. He really was tremendous. There was a couple of funny things that happened. So when I was first there and learning Spanish, I was staying with him, and he had me celebrate a 15th birthday Mass, so the 15 años. And he didn't tell me, though, that these were folks from the ranchos and who only had been Mass maybe once or twice in their whole lives. And so I'm giving them instructions in Spanish to sit, stand, kneel, stuff like that. And of course, as I'm going, I got fouled up in my Spanish. And so they're trying to decide what to do, whether to sit, stand, or kneel, while I'm standing there. And he's in the sacristy giggling of my confusion with the whole thing. In any event, we made it through the Mass, and I probably needed to go to confession after the Mass, I can tell you. So anyway, it was humorous. So this was the festival we just had, and these are folks from all over the place that came in for the festival. The festival day, the Feast of San Miguel, Festival Day was a day in which all of the mission churches came in to Saltillo, and we actually sent out buses to pick them up and come, and we celebrated Mass for them, and then we had presentations and a kind of a show and a luncheon for all of them, and then there was another Mass for the confirmation young people, so that's part of the reason I went, was to confirm. And how many of you have I confirmed? How many of y'all see that? Look at that. Yay, team. Go team, go team, go team, yay. Go. So keep going, let's see what else we got. And this is the new bishop of Saltillo, or Coahuila, Bishop Hilario. And his English is broken, but not bad. And of course, his Spanish is excellent. So we got a chance to visit. And then this is the kind of a pilgrimage moment in which the people of the area and the village came, and we're walking to kind of lead them in honor of San Miguel. But you notice Our Lady of Guadalupe is a big part of this. So her image and her devotion is huge in that area. And then the people dressed in blue are some of we call them danzantes, the dancers. And so they'll dance all the way into the church, all the way in. And it's really something else to watch and experience. And then we had the final Mass, we had the mariachis playing. Has anybody been to a mariachi Mass? Yeah, a few? Okay, good. Wonderful. Me too. Me too. And so they played and sang, which was gorgeous. Now you can see the Church of San Miguel, how it opens up. And it's really huge, huge. Go ahead. Part of the ceremony. Keep going. And this is me. It became a moment in which I was initially just blessing one person, and of course you know what happens when you do one person. You got to do them all. So I had a huge line of people coming to receive a blessing, which was wonderful to see. Deep faith. And these are part of the danzantes. This group is from the mission we were telling you about that's 2 hours away in Garambullo. And I was really surprised we had so many danzantes from there, but they really, really were committed. And they dance for the Lord. They dance for the Lord. They're not dancing for anything else. And of course, Our Lady. But they dance for the Lord. It's really a gift. Keep going. Okay, and so again, from one of the groups, and the fella over here is supposed to be the evil one, and the dancers are dancing the evil one away. That's the way to look at it. Okay. And this is one of the leaders of one of our villages. He's a rancher also, farmer, a good man. Keep going. And then we had little angels that came to the last Mass that we had that day for San Miguel. They were cutie pies, all of them. And it was funny, the boys began to take off the angel wings after they got in the church. but the girls all kept theirs on. I think that's significant. Girls, what do you think? The boys are not impressed with that one, but okay. All right, keep going. One of the things that I've been touched by every time I go back is that because we were there in the last 50 years, and eventually we weren't able to send a priest to be down there, so we had 2 men from that mission that were ordained priests. And so they were actually stationed in this particular mission. And we had the Saltillo Diocese, the Diocese of Coahuila, staff it, but we are the ones that support it and enable them to take the cars and the vehicles and all that to go into the ranchos, because it's expensive to try to take care of all those missions. So one of the things that's really touched me is that through our work, the faith is very alive with the folks, all the way through the mission. Very alive. And it's enabled, I think, them to grow, in the faith in a big way. So there's catechists now in every single village. They have their religious education, faith formation in every village, and of course in all the different colonias. And there's 8 colonias that surround this one parish, which is. We probably served, when I was there, somewhere between 25 and 30,000 people. Now we serve, I couldn't even tell you the number. It's off the scale, given that we're now 4 times the size that we were, then. So we as a church really need to continue to reach out to those that are on the periphery, as Pope Francis has told us. And these are folks that would have been completely on the periphery had we not been there for them and really been able to minister to them and enable them to grow in the faith and grow in the sacraments of the church. And thank God, vocations have happened enough to where we are able to continue the ministry, at least financially. Your parents, some of your parents may have also talked about going to the mission, which is a wonderful experience. I used to have 10 groups a year go for about 10 years. But it's gotten to a point now where it's not safe enough for groups to go to the mission. They're not going to bother the bishops, I don't think, much, so we go to represent us. But to have a group like from here to be able to go, I'd love to send a group, would love it, but they can't sign off on it at this stage. It's just too dangerous in the mission at this point. So I'd encourage, though, each of you to consider a mission experience if you haven't been. So how many have been on a mission experience of some sort? Yay, team. I just encourage you to do that. It's really special, very special. It's life-changing, actually, life-changing. I know it was for me when I went down there to be a young priest, and now as a bishop. So it's really a gift to do that. So it was actually Pope St. John the 23rd that started this, and then Paul VI is the one that continued it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, I don't know if you said this earlier, but how many mission trips have you been on? Many. Yeah. So the first about 8 months of priesthood were, of course, in the missions, and then I probably brought groups 10 years worth at least, multiple groups, and we would bring the group from actually the mission to the diocese to sing and for the people to meet. So it was really, really very good for them, but also good for our folks too. And of course I've been all over the place after that for various sundry missions. So yeah, I'm on mission now with you.
Good question. Yes, sir.
What were your expectations for your priestly ministry like when you were in formation?
So, there was really a spirit of service, I think, among us, the seminarians, a desire to serve the church, desire to make a difference, and I knew at the time that there was going to be a need for me to learn Spanish, to really have Spanish down. And I also knew at the time I didn't have it down. I had a large reading vocabulary, but I didn't have a large speaking vocabulary. So I needed to be able to work on that. And then it was super Eucharistic based, I guess the best way to say it. And that actually was one of the challenges I had getting ordained. I knew I was absolutely unworthy to hold the body and blood of Christ in my hands. Absolutely unworthy. And I took that into my priesthood retreat right before I was to be ordained a priest. This is a week away from being ordained a priest. November 18, 1977, so the week before that. And that's what I took into the retreat. I said, Lord, I'm just not worthy. How in the world can I do this? And after about 3 or 4 days of prayer, it came to me that, the answer was simple, but really has changed everything. And that was, as human beings, we are not worthy. But I have promised to be there no matter how you feel, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what happens. All you have to do is pray. And that did it. And I said, okay, I'm in, I'm ready. Let's go. And that was almost 45 years ago. It's just hard to believe the time has flown that far and fast. I had one of my parochial vicars, one of my assistant priests, was counting the days that he had been ordained, and thus the days he'd celebrated Mass. So at that time, he was at 37 days. I was at 37 years. Then he counted, how many Masses that I had celebrated at that point. And he figured out it was over 18,000 Masses that I'd celebrated in 35 years, counting the multiple Masses in Mexico. I'm over 20,000 now, easily. I haven't been counting it yet. Great question. Yes, sir?
What kind of food did y'all eat in Saltillo?
So when I was first down there, we were really poor. So it was rice, beans, and eggs every single meal. Didn't matter what meal it was. And one of the funny things, this was in Rancho Viejo. It was up in the mountains, and had Mass in a bodega, which was like a storage room. And the people had gathered, and it was dark. And we're in a adobe hut, and the only light is coming from a 50-gallon drum that they've cut in half, and they've got an open fire. That's the only light there is. So they put a plate in front of me, and I'm eating the eggs and the beans, and I realized they had put something on top of them, and it was mountain chili patines, which I was beginning to do what I'm doing now. I mean, sudando, so just sweating. And they actually went out and milked a cow and brought the milk in for me to put the fire out. So this trip, they really, because it was a celebration, we really had, chicken, we had beef, we had cabrito, we had rice, we had beans, we had, taquitos everywhere. I mean, it was very nice. Now, footnoting for you, one of the things I've had to deal with in my whole life has been a colon problem.
And I didn't really have it when I was down there as a young priest, but this trip, my colon decided to activate in the last Mass at communion time, so I ended up kind of in an alcove after receiving communion, laying sitting in a chair first and then laying on the floor. So it hit me hard. So I ended up with an infection in my colon. So this was not Montezuma's revenge like we think of, you know. This was a big time thing. So I ended up with 2 shots, and we were leaving at 5 a.m. the next morning to go back to the States. And so they prayed over me big time to be able to get back here, and made it back, and I've been on antibiotics now for, I'm off of them now, but that's one of the things that happens when you're a missionary. Stuff happens, and when you're not as young as you used to be, it gets to be fun. So did that get it, Mason?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good questions. Keep going. You're on the roll. Yes, sir.
How has God revealed himself to you through these mission trips in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to encounter?
Just extraordinary as a young priest especially. Just extraordinary. I don't think I would have had the same kind of mission, spirit that I do without that. I mean, it enabled me to fall in love with the people, So I was kidding the people today. I had a couple that came in from Corpus Christi and from St. Philip's, actually. And they have 3 kids. One of them's a 2-year-old. And the 2-year-old was everywhere. And I just made a comment to the group that was there for Mass. I said, if I don't have 10 kids running around the church, I don't feel comfortable. And that's actually what we had in Mexico. We had 10 kids running around the church all the time. And 4 or 5 dogs that would come in and run out, come in and run out, come in and run out. So it enabled me to really be patient with folks, but also to really fall in love with folks and fall in love with our folks that are Spanish speaking. So we have a tremendous drive now in the diocese to minister to our folks that speak Spanish. And actually I was just here this past Saturday to be with one of our charismatic Spanish-speaking groups at Sacred Heart, and had a wonderful Mass with them. And actually we took a photo. We don't have that to put up for you, but we had them up on the altar, and man, it was covered with people, covered, just wonderful. It also opened up for me that everything now has 2 names. So one's English, one's Spanish, everything. It opens your world up. So all of a sudden I realized there's 300 million more people I can talk to. Man, wow. So when I visit Spain, I got them, And of course Mexico, I'm hecho en Mexico. I'm made in Mexico. So, so great question. So I also don't want it to appear like it was all golden. It was not. It was a challenge and a half. The house we stayed in had termites in the wood that was above us, and so every morning when I'd wake up, I would have termite dust all over me, and had to, of course, clean up. We didn't have running water unless they diverted the water towards the houses, because sometimes they diverted them to the fields for the crops. So when they did that, there wasn't running water at all. We had a flat tire one time on one of our trucks, no spare, and of course I had a conversation with the priest that didn't get his spare fixed anyway, and we slept in the sacristy and then had to take a bus back to get the spare truck to come back and get the other truck. And on the bus were chickens and a bunch of people and everything, parakeets, everything you want to think of was on that bus on the way in. So we were with the people, When I was, of course, younger, I played basketball with the guys and girls. I played football with them, soccer a little bit. I'm terrible at soccer, and they were wonderful. Man, what they could do with the ball. I just shook my head. But, you know, it was fun. I was trying to think of... but you know, it's a lot to have to be a mission priest, to be a circuit rider. So you see people only once a month. Now you slowly but surely get to know them, and slowly but surely you really appreciate them. And of course, they're very welcoming. And I've had rice, beans, and eggs every possible way you can fix rice, beans, and eggs. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us any personal testimonies from the people that you heard?
Yeah, and I had one that I told the people in one of my homilies this time. In one of the villages, or one of the ranchos, we had a little old lady, and I think she remembered me from when I was there, you know, years ago. And she came up, and she kissed my hands with such love and such devotion that it just blew me away. I mean, it was so wonderful that I actually brought it up in one of the homilies I gave down there. That, you know, there's a simplicity about it, but boy, a deep faith. You know, people that would be, you know, really feeling kind of lost and alone, and our presence would change it. People that would be ill, and we'd come in and lay hands and anoint them, and just have an experience of healing, whether it was an immediate physical healing, but it was definitely an immediate spiritual healing for them. Wonderful. And then celebrating Eucharist with them, just wonderful. One particular village I'll remember, I would celebrate Mass for them. I was trying to remember the name of the village at this point. I can't remember it. In any event, there was the men would never come in church. Never. They couldn't get them in there. So it was all women. And then there was one guy that they called El Borracho. So he was the drunk. And he would stand out outside the church, leaning up against a pole, and he would sing at the top of his lungs all during the Mass, all during the Mass. So we began what we call the Escuela de la Cruz, so the School of the Cross, And we did, the first retreat was for the men. And after we had done a number of those retreats, both for men and women, all the men came back into the church, and even El Borracho came. Conversion. The whole town was converted. Amazing. Really a gift to see that happen, and to be a part of it. I mean, really. Yeah, there were some of the ranchos that were kind of truck stops, you know, that stuff happens at truck stops. Anyway, those villages got converted completely by the Escuela de la Cruz also. It really was a gift. It's like a search retreat, Acts retreats, but for adults, and based on the cross of Christ. Just really, really very moving. There were some times, and even now, when I celebrate the Eucharist and my socks are blown off. I actually have to check and see if they're still on, because the Lord is moving so strongly. Wonderful. I mean, really. In fact, I'm going to celebrate Mass. It's a private Mass, but y'all are welcome tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning here. So you're welcome to come. I've had moments in which partly, you know, I'll start in Mexico. Part of it was when I had a sense of all the Cristeros, the saints of the Cristeros, 1917, when the revolution took place, and we had so many Catholic Christians that were killed and martyred, and their presence around the altar just was palpable. You could just feel them there. I mean, it was really moving, and I've had that experience now many different times with many different places. Just powerful. It truly is a moment, and that's why I was telling all the judges and the lawyers at the Red Mass this past Sunday. It's truly a moment during the Eucharist when heaven meets earth, and the body of Christ, which is the crucified, risen body, glorified, meets us on the altar, and then meets us in Holy Communion. Wow! I mean, really. So good, very good question. Very good. Any others? We have 10 more minutes before we release you completely. So. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're going about converting these people, do you just like take them straight to a mass, or do you like introduce Jesus first? Like, what are kind of your first steps in introducing?
So it's a team effort. So we have catechists that we train first, and they are from the village. And we take them through something similar to what Focus does with our Focus missionaries. And then we have them spend time with the people in the village. And then sometimes we'll have rolling teams of sisters, religious sisters, that will go out and also spend time with them. If they're there for marriage, I will usually be the one to give them marriage prep. Now, as a bishop, I'm not, but as a priest, I would. That was another humorous moment. My first wedding as a priest was in Mexico. And I'm in a town called Ifigenia. Never been there before. The sisters had to guide me. The whole village met us at the opening of the town and processed us to the church. So we get to the church, and I'm celebrating Mass and coming to the wedding ceremony, which I've never done before. In fact, I hadn't really spent a lot of time with the ceremony itself in Spanish. And so I'm doing the repeat after me vows, and so I would say the vows, they would correct it and say it back to me. So that's one of the humorous moments. Another one, when I actually celebrated the Paschal feast, so Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday in a particular town called Artesillas, and they had a baseball team. And the baseball team were the apostles, okay? So they played a baseball game in sandals in Mexico before the Holy Thursday service. So you imagine the washing of the feet. The first guy, the water turned to chocolate. By the last guy, it was absolute mud. Absolute mud. Well, the other humorous thing was I didn't realize on Good Friday that when we did the Stations of the Cross outside, and the wind was blowing pretty good, that the dust had come up, okay? And so when I got into church, there was no mirrors or anything, and so I celebrated the whole Good Friday service, and then passed a window, which actually happened to be able to reflect what I looked like. So my eyelashes were completely white with dust. My hair was completely white with dust. And I looked at the sisters, I says, how come you didn't tell me I was covered in dust? She says, we thought you knew. So cute things that happen, but still blessings all the way. So yeah, thank you. Y'all are doing great with the questions. Keep going. We're down to the last few minutes together. So one of the things that people in Mexico taught me is how to pray simply, how to love the Lord simply, and how to love the Mother of God simply. That it's not complex. It's about love. It's about love. It's about opening your heart. It's about letting God touch us, letting God truly lead us, guide us, shape us, form us, and help us, and let Our Lady really intercede for us in a big way. So once my mother passed away in 1999, Mary has been my spiritual mother since then. Now, I talk to my mother still. I say, Ma, what do you want me to do with this? And sometimes I say, Ma, Blessed Virgin, what do you want me to do with this? You know, as a bishop. So, yeah, the simplicity of faith is a gift. It's a gift in the end. No matter what language it's in, no matter what language. I also had a comedy moment. I did a mission trip to Brazil in June, and partly was to check out a process that they have there of enabling addicts to be healed through prayer, the Eucharist, hard work, and then mentoring. So we're going to be bringing that to the diocese, I can tell you. In any event, the first Mass I celebrated with them, they didn't have a Spanish book. So they gave me the Portuguese book, which I'd never seen before and never spoken Portuguese ever. So I ended up celebrating Mass in Portuguese with a Spanish accent. So that was amazing to see their faith in the midst of their struggle to be healed. And everybody in there would have died on the street in Brazil had they not found the Fazenda de Esperanza, the farm of hope, the garden of hope. So that's actually what I want to have happen here, too. That's one of the things that we're going to try to bring. All right, team. So, praying for each of you, now that I've met you now again, and those of you that I've confirmed, I've been praying for you big time, okay? And praying for you that the missionary spirit will hit each of you in one way or another. And no matter what vocation you go into, let the missionary spirit live for you. Let it live. Okay. So we'll give you all a blessing, and then let y'all kind of visit with each other. I'm still here for a bit more, so the Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Yay, team!
Everyone go ahead and give Bishop